Hey, it's Mazzy here, and this is another episode, a new series called, I'm calling it Trading Places, but it's where I take your city or state or county or country, depending on how big or small you are, and you take mine, at least for now, my birthplace, the San Francisco Bay Area, but in future episodes, if someone wants to choose Seattle, so be it. I have the digital gramophone himself, John here. Where are you from, John?
I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Now, this is the dilemma. It's not even a dilemma. This is just the fact. You could do San Francisco bands, or you could do Oakland bands, or you could do LA bands, but it's hard to just do Charlotte or Raleigh Durham. I mean, for me, I'm
It's
taking the whole state on.
yeah, it's especially hard to do Charlotte. Like it would be easy for some people to do Raleigh Durham, but yeah, I think it's better for you to do the whole state.
That works. Okay, it works, and sometimes it'll
Yeah.
be a whole continent. So, depending on how this goes with future
Right, right,
collaborators. The other
right.
thing is that John and I discussed this. We don't know what each other is showing, but most likely my picks are people who are from North Carolina, really didn't develop they didn't get famous, and they didn't like stay there to become known. They had to go to other places. Sorry, North Carolina, but at
Yeah,
least the ones I know. Now, you know a lot of local bands that are still there that
yeah.
probably the guy next door to you is in a band.
No, not in
Okay.
this neighborhood, but yeah.
Okay. So we chose five. Maybe we have a bonus or two, who knows? And
Hmm.
John's gonna go first. So
Okay.
have at it.
Um, I'm gonna start with this is probably well, I don't know. This one was kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to start with the Dead Kennedys. And I'm not a real huge like punk guy, right? I kind of more am into collecting the classics. I'm more into music that was inspired by punk, so I feel like I've always felt like as a music geek, I need to go back and get, the roots of it, And so there's a lot of punk that I'm not that huge into, but the Dead Kennedys I've always really loved. There's just something about them. There's like to be such simple, kind of simple, straight ahead, like punk, hardcore punk. There's a lot of variety in their records, from song to song. And then Jello Biafra, is that how you say it?
Oh, Biafra. Yeah.
Yeah, he
You could
has.
say Biafra, but it's Jello Biafra.
Yeah, there's a theatricality to like his
Absolutely.
performance, and that just is like on a whole separates them from all the other punk bands, in my opinion. They're the one kind of like punk band from the 70s and 80s that I would be happy to like have all of their records. This is the only other one that I have. Um, I had the EP that they did after this one, but it was in really bad condition. I got
Nazi
ripped
punks,
off.
fuck off.
Huh?
Nazi punks, fuck off.
No, what was it?
I have that one with it's weird to have that one in my house because it comes with a armband and swastika.
Oh,
I
yeah.
shouldn't laugh about that, but
But, yeah, no, that is, yeah.
I mean he's so political. They're a political band.
It was the EP that had like the cross on the front of it.
Oh, well, isn't that the with the red? That's his one.
No, it wasn't red.
Okay.
I
Well,
can't remember the name of it.
someone's got to
But
put it in the comments because they're smarter than.
yeah, somebody, yeah, is gonna. And so yeah, the Dead Kennedys. The Dead
They
Kennedys.
were so theatrical. No, they're one of the bands that I got to see. Like I probably saw them a dozen times. And Jello Biafra even once or twice ran for mayor of San Francisco.
Right.
It didn't turn out the way he wanted
Yeah.
it, and he's still, I mean, it's interesting. The California Uber Alles, I mean, it's really against the Jerry Brown administration, which, if you're going on it's a liberal. I mean, Jerry Brown was a liberal, but he was, Buddhist and
Mhm.
but he still was part of the establishment in a way, but he was off center. So Jello even took pot shots at people like Jerry Brown as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Alternative Tentacles was their label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still active? He
I
ran
think
it
they
after they
have,
broke up, right?
yeah, I think occasionally they have product. I don't know if they repress some, but other people have licensed like that. That first album has been licensed. Obviously, you have that
Mhm.
might be an original, is it? But there's
It's
black
the
cover
U
after that.
it's the US. It's
Yeah.
the US original.
Yeah.
The UK version was always black cover.
Right.
Like this is the one on IRS that's got the, you know, the band on the
That
back.
was later then, because I don't think the first one was in the. I don't remember now. Okay.
Yeah, this was the first US one.
East Bay Ray is in the band there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
and then he does like what, like spoken word. He does like the same thing Henry Rollins
He's
does,
kind
pretty
of the
much.
Henry Rollins, but not as successful. and,
Right,
and
right.
not as. I don't want to say he's not as articulate, but he doesn't have that. He's just different. We'll leave it
Yeah,
at. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, my first choice is from the 90s CD era. Now, remember, I think this is probably the most important artist ever to be birthed in North Carolina. And this person happens to be from a place that I don't know. Never been to, have you ever been to Newton?
I mean, I've never been there, but I know of it.
And
Yeah.
some of my viewers will probably be surprised of the vast collection I have of this artist.
Uh-huh.
And I think this person doesn't get enough love in these vinyl community channels.
Okay.
And this is Tori Amos.
I okay. I had no idea she was born in North Carolina. No clue. Okay.
Come on. Now, Tori
No
Amos
idea.
is someone that is not considered hip, but she's got such a tight, huge, massive following, not
Hmm.
just with women, but obviously women centric and
Hmm.
feminism and what she's written about and political in some ways.
Hmm.
That was an album from 2021, I believe. And that's a really good album. I got it all into her. And let's go from I'm not going to go through every one, but
Yeah.
Crucify was a very different type of album at the time. I mean, later artists like Fiona Apple and the whole Lilith Fair thing that was going on. Remember in
Yeah.
the 90s, the women thing? I
Sure.
love this record. That's probably no accident, that back cover on that type of thing. But I
Okay.
really liked, and it got a lot of airplay on even the college FM stations, is her cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit on this EP.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I've been just a big fan. I stayed with her for a long time.
Yeah. See, Under the
She was,
Pink was the one. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, she was popular. I won't go through every one, and I don't know what to say now. Obviously, she didn't become famous within
Oh.
North Carolina, and you, a native, didn't even know she was from North Carolina. She doesn't wear a
Well,
sleeve.
yeah. So like, well, I'm from so, and I should preface by saying I am actually from South Carolina, but
Oh,
like but my dad was from North Carolina. I was raised on a lot of North Carolina things. And so I always felt like more at home when I moved up here. But like the I had no idea she was from North Carolina. And now I'm a little disappointed in her then because like
she
it's
left
not like
it.
there weren't artists and bands that came up in the 90s in North Carolina that became very successful.
And
So
she
like
became very
what
successful.
why did she didn't have to leave? She didn't have to.
Well, maybe she did. It's kind of like the Beatles kind of had to leave Liverpool really to go to the rest of the world, to go to,
Maybe. Did she go to maybe she went to like an art school like in New York or something
to
like
be honest,
that
I don't
probably.
know her history on that, but
Yeah.
I was dragged to see her uh, by someone. And she had this thing that it's kind of, once it was pointed out to me, I couldn't stop looking at it. She would wear this like dress or a skirt with a big slit, open slit because of her, piano, you have to, for the pedals. And
Yeah,
she would
funky.
have her leg out to the right, doing this thing with her leg like that, and
Hmm.
bare leg showing, not in a sexual way, but just the whole
Yeah.
thing of her at the piano here and her leg sort of positioned towards the audience, away from the piano stool and bench. And it was just, I started like, you know, just I couldn't stop looking at that just because of that scene. So you had a picture, Maslov
Yeah.
looking at Tori Amos.
Yeah. I could understand that.
Okay. Well, there you go. Tori Amos. And I think
Okay,
I have
Tori
what,
Amos. That
8,
was
9, 10 CDs. I don't have any vinyl. I don't have
definitely
any vinyl.
definitely not an artist I expected to hear. Um, all right, so I'm interested because I've never seen you talk about this band. And I watch, I don't know, 70% of your videos. Like I used to watch them all before you started making 5 a day. But I'm pretty sure I've never seen you talk about this band. They're from San Francisco, American Music Club.
Yeah.
Do you know them at
Well,
all?
I have all their albums on CD,
Okay.
none on vinyl. And I used to have people tell me that I looked like Mark Eitzel.
Yeah. So that was going to be my
I
first
did talk to
question.
him about them once. I haven't done a big feature on it.
Uh-huh. Is that it was how you pronounce his last name? Eitzel
Mark
or
Eitzel.
Etzel?
Mark Eitzel.
It's Eitzel. Yeah.
Eitzel.
Etzel?
Eitzel.
Eitzel. Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, so like American Music Club, I didn't get into them until much later than they were formed in the early 80s. Their first iteration, I guess, lasted until like the mid 90s, I think, maybe the late 90s. And then they kind of took a break for a while and then they came back and they ended up putting out a couple of records on Merge Records, which is a North Carolina label. And that was my first exposure to them was I saw them perform. Merge has these anniversary festivals that they do, and it was their 20th anniversary festival, and it was the last day, and they performed at it. Now it was just Mark Eitzel, and then
he had a bunch of solo CDs too. Solo.
yeah, he did, yeah. But he had a pianist with him, and like a guy from the band, and it was it was I don't even know how to explain it. He had this crazy nervous energy and he was just real twitchy and just like, and he told these stories that were captivating yet really weird, and they were all completely random, but then they were supposed to be related to the songs that they were about to play. So it was kind of this very odd version of VH1 Storytellers or something like happening like right in front of me. But it was incredible. Some of the stories were even better than the songs, but the songs were fantastic. And so I went back and I went backwards into the discography. And the ones that I really like the most are these earlier ones. These ones from these two from the 80s are fantastic. And when you listen to these are a little bit more straightforward rock and roll, even though his singing is a little at times can be
I don't
not
have that
talk
last one.
singing.
I don't have the blue one.
Yeah, not talk singing, but like there's a crooning that he does, with his
He's kind of
vocals.
atonal. He's kind of off key almost sometimes. He's got the
Can
G.
be, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But there's something very jazzy about it too. But then when you listen to these records, it's like, oh, that the Counting Crows totally aped these guys. Like, and they're a San Francisco band.
Yeah, but they're without they had the power though, that the hooks.
Yeah, they wrote
He
more
doesn't really
pop
have hooks.
songs.
He
They
doesn't have
wrote
hooks.
more kind of pop rock songs,
Right.
Counting Crows. But there's something about because there's a real rootsiness in this music too.
It's Sad Bastard music too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sometimes they've been sometimes they're mentioned in the same breath as like the Red House Painters. I don't see the exact same thing, but
well,
similar. They're slower material for sure.
I used to see them both around the same time. In fact, together, the Red House Painters and Mark and American Music Club were playing around the same time in San Francisco. They were playing at the Mission, all these Mission clubs. So
Yeah.
they kind of, there's totally different sound, but they're very slow and moody.
Yeah, like this.
That's
This
great.
is the 93 one. This is probably.
Is that Warner Brothers? Did they go to Warner Brothers? They got signed a major somewhere.
This is Virgin.
Oh, Virgin, I mean. Yeah.
Virgin. This is a UK press though. But still, yeah, this one is really, really good too. What I like about the 80s albums is that they're there was nobody that sounded like them at that time. I mean, you could maybe kind of like say, yeah, these guys would have toured well with REM or something like that. But it's just like his vocal delivery is just, there was nobody else really doing what he was doing in the 80s, you know? Um, and I almost feel like they're maybe not given enough credit for like
No, they
influence.
kind of fizzled out. Do you have the album? I can't remember if it's their first or second. It's an illustrated cover. It's got the title San Francisco in the title. It's really colorful.
Yeah, no, that one was right before this one. That was
Yeah.
91, I think.
I have that on, see, I bought most of those on CD. I don't have
Mhm.
any on vinyl. Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget. I always forget about them. And it's funny because you got to be in a mood for me. Because I mean, yeah, I know you're more in the sad bastard mood than I am sometimes, of that kind of,
Yeah.
he's got this kind of like, if Chad Kassem was a vocalist, it might be like Mark Eitzel sounding.
I think he's got a little bit more personality than that,
Yeah.
but like I think that I think it's also just like if you're into Tom Waits for the words, like if you're one of those people that's into Tom Waits for the words, like that's a band to be into for, I mean, I'm talking about sounds like just like short stories,
Yeah.
like those songs. They're remarkable writing. But yeah, a band honestly I feel like I should be even more into than I really am, but like um yeah, they're great though. They're great.
Excellent choice to shine a light on them because you're right, they're not thought of very much. And
No.
I I think I showed one of their things on a collection at some point I did, but no, I have
Mhm.
never dived in and showcased them on here. My second choice is obviously the most obvious person from North Carolina, all the way from Hamlet, North Carolina.
Mhm.
Do you know where Hamlet is?
Yes. Yeah.
Where in the state is it?
It's towards the eastern part of the state, I think. Yes.
Well, in fact, I should ask you this at the get-go. We have a lot of viewers from around the world here. Can you
Mhm.
tell us exactly where North Carolina is on the map of the US? Because people know New York and California, they don't know anything else. They know
It's
Texas.
in the southeastern part of the United States.
It's right down here.
Yeah, it's on the coast.
And
So
it's
there's
kind of long
basically,
like this, right?
yeah. So it's North Carolina, South Carolina, a little bit of Georgia, and then Florida. Like
Okay.
that's kind of, and Virginia's right above us,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
Tennessee's to the west.
Thank
So
you.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to talk much about this person, but I'm showing John Coltrane. Come on.
Oh yeah, of
And,
course.
and you told me don't show John Coltrane, but I'm showing, fucking showing John Coltrane. Obviously, he had to go to New York, and then he, played
Mhm.
all around. But I just decided to pick two from impulse, of two opposite things. Obviously, one of his most famous albums, Love Supreme, which has a real spiritual sound and a real dirgy kind of chant thing, which is, if you get into this, it is so beautiful. If you're not, it might take a while, but it's not
Mhm.
one of the out there albums of his that is very frenetic. And it's before he was doing a lot of what my ex-partner, well, my family, what my baby mama, Michelle, would say is that squeaky jazz,
Yeah,
saxophone stuff where
yeah.
it's squeaking all the time. Wonderful album. And this I love just because this is probably an easy
Mhm.
enter because it's literally ballads. It's shot ballads. Beautiful photograph by Jim Marshall on the cover. Uh,
Mhm.
this has McCoy Tyner, Jimmy Garrison, and Elvin Jones that he toured with a
Mhm.
lot around this time. It's just a great record, and you can't deny probably one of the most important. I mean, Miles Davis and John Coltrane are kind of the two around that period that
Yeah.
are probably the A-listers. And it's again, we always hate to really make it a competition, but if you tell someone to get into jazz, it's Miles Davis, Coltrane, and then of course there's a handful of others. To me, Charlie Parker would be number one, but it's a different
Mhm.
generation, really.
Yeah.
So to me, that's really great. I could not show North Carolina without talking. I don't know how much time he spent there. Maybe you can enlighten us and talk about that. if you know?
I don't remember. Like his childhood home is like a historical landmark. So it's being protected, you know.
Good. Good.
Yeah. But like I don't remember exactly how long he was here. But there are people that are much more knowledgeable about jazz, people that probably actually play music, you know, which I don't, that will tell you that you can hear a Southern influence in John Coltrane's music. When it comes to jazz, I don't, unless it's like New Orleans swing or something like that, like I don't hear Southern, you know, but there are scholars, you know, jazz scholars that will tell you that you can hear that in his music. Or maybe contemporary artists will tell you that too. I don't hear it, you know, but it's like,
that may be because you're from South Carolina originally.
well, it's just not, well, I'm just saying the South in general, like, you know, and I guess on maybe some of the bluesier material, you know, like his earlier material, you can hear it.
He's very skillful in his play in some of that playing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my favorite material by him though is where he's starting to not the free stuff as much, but the period right before that, you know, is where I'm really, that's my favorite Coltrane, and he's just kind of like stretching the genre so far that you wouldn't really hear any of that kind of Southern influence in that necessarily. But I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not as knowledgeable about it, but
Okay.
Now I thought it would be interesting to talk about a genre that is never talked about on this channel. And I'm going to bring up a hip hop artist, and it's not never talked about. I'll give you that, but not as much. But I'm going to talk about Del the Funky Homosapien, and he's from Oakland, and his cousin is Ice Cube, who actually produced this record. This is I Wish My Brother George Was Here, which almost the title almost sounds kind of like a memorial, but he's actually talking about George Clinton. And this is full of Parliament samples. West Coast rap in general was kind of known for that, being really heavy in George Clinton samples. But this one is probably like a benchmark. It came out in 91, I believe. So it predated like the Chronic, you know, any of Snoop's albums. But like he started this kind of collective called the Hieroglyphics. And they were kind of similar to what was happening on the East Coast with Tribe and De La Soul and a lot of those hip hop artists. Del the Funky Homosapien and Hieroglyphics. And he would end up doing the project Deltron 3030 with Dan the Automator. He would also be in Gorillaz, kind of a band member of Gorillaz, you know, especially on that
What
first
cartoon
Gorillaz
character
record.
would he be?
Huh?
What character was he?
I don't remember what
Yeah.
the actual,
With Damon
you know,
Amos.
they
Damon.
started more
Oh.
with kind of having real characters on that first album and those
Right.
first music videos, but it got a lot more loose after that. But yeah, this record is fantastic. And it's so different from what was happening at the time. You would never be able to label it, you know, gangster rap or whatever. But it's still very much about, you know, life in the hood, you know, and it's just more day-to-day kind of stuff.
Did that do
About,
did that album do well at the time? Was it a
no, super underground.
any
He
trajectory
was
of him?
always
I don't
underground.
know. I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about him. Any trajectory beyond that? Did he go on to
Yeah, I mean, he never
did he
really
leave the
became
hood?
super famous. He was still just very much like an underground hip hop artist. Like, I guess the most famous thing that he was ever probably associated with was Gorillaz. But real hip hop heads know him for sure. And like he would guest on a lot of stuff. Like there was the Handsome Boy Modeling School project. He was on that. But The two songs that I'm gonna cite is there's a song called Mr. Dabalina. Does that sound familiar?
From the Monkees.
Yes. So he sampled that from what was that album? Headquarters?
Headquarters. Mr.
Yeah.
Bobolina, Mr. Bob Dabalina.
Yep.
Zilch.
Yeah. So that's the chorus.
Right.
Like it's that.
It's like it's an
And
a cappella thing anyway. Yeah.
right. So he lifted that and he just turned Mr. Bob Dabalina into a character, you know.
Like
And then
I'm gonna
the
have to
other
seek that
song,
out after we get off here.
yeah, and then the other song is Pissing on Your Steps, which is a diss track where he calls out Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer. So yeah, there you go.
So you didn't
Del
pick,
Funky
you didn't
Homosapien.
choose MC Hammer as a Bay Area, Oakland.
No.
Great choice. Because of your choice, I'm switching the order of because you mentioned George Clinton.
Yeah.
Okay. George Clinton from
Yeah.
Kannapolis, North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Now,
The home of Dale Earnhardt.
the race car driver?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm surprised I knew he was a race car driver. It surprised me even knowing that. Of course, you can't. One of the most important artists in music, as a producer, as a player, brought a sense of humor, influence, rap artists, funk artists, hip art, rock artists. I mean, influenced artists like Beck. I mean, white artists, black artists, everything. And, Bootsy Collins and his band, Parliament Funkadelic, he had two separate things with Funkadelic and Parliament. One's more soulful, funky, one's more rocky, funky. But just there was such a sense of humor in this music, and I have most of them. I don't have all of them, of course. Maggot Brain is a famous one that the rock audience got hooked into, mainly because of Eddie Hazel's amazing guitar solo for 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it's right. AOR radio or FM radio, it's perfect for that. I just got this when I was in Vancouver last year. And I had never heard this one. This is a second. He did like 4 albums for Capitol in the 80s. And this is the second of 4. And it's more electronic-y funk with computer, but it's a really good album too. And it's hysterical. And Bootsy's on it. Maceo Parker plays horn on it. It's just a really good album. And I mean, you look at this cover, you cannot not pick this up in a record store if it's crazy price. I think these are all out of print, which is unfortunate. They should. And I just mentioned yesterday that Eddie Hazel solo album is coming out on that new Rhino label in January. And I know it's been out on. I was pointed that it was out on. It's on Real Gone now. You can get a copy. So I don't have a copy, and I'm looking forward to that. But what an important artist. So throw your knowledge of George Clinton. I know you love George Clinton. You're a fan.
I do love George Clinton.
Yeah.
I will say that I'm not much of a scholar. It's just because there's just so much music. There's just so much music. But I got into George Clinton because of like Sly Stone, because of Herbie Hancock, Headhunters, because of Talking Heads. Like you read about Remaining Light, they cite George Clinton all the time as a major influence on their sound. But like my favorite thing about George Clinton, though, my favorite kind of cultural reference is the movie PCU. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Okay. It had Jeremy Piven in it. Who
I know of it.
He's canceled now.
Right.
It had Jon Favreau in it. He was not known. This was before Swingers. And it was about a college, that was politically correct. University was kind of like the thing. And George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic were like in the movie, like performing at like
dance,
this really alt counterculture frat, house or whatever. It's fantastic stuff. But yeah, I'm a huge fan though, of course.
Yeah. So, but okay, did he leave North Carolina? I mean,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
away? Where did he
I
become?
would say I think he went from North Carolina to DC. There were several artists that did that. Um, Link Ray and his brothers did that. They left. They started their band and started playing music in North Carolina, but then they moved to DC and Virginia. And I think all of the music that most of us are familiar with him, especially the '70s output from Link Ray, was all recorded in Virginia. Like, but yeah, there were a lot of there. I think that was the obvious gateway was, go to DC.
Was that the stuff with Robert Gordon? Was that, Link Ray, Robert was
Yeah, no, I think it
kind of the
even before
rockabilly?
that,
Okay.
even before the
That
Robert
was
Gordon stuff.
78, 77,
Yeah.
78.
No, the early stuff, like it's that trilogy. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, just kind of on the spot, brain dead right now. But yeah, like Link Ray was a big one from North Carolina. I don't know if you're probably not mentioning him. Um,
Maybe, maybe not.
but maybe we'll see. My turn. Is it
Yeah,
my turn? So I'm not going to talk about the Grateful Dead, but I'm going to talk about
that's okay.
a guy associated with Jerry
Should I,
Garcia,
should I guess?
David Grisman.
The Grisman.
So Old and in the Way. It's kind of like not the first thing, I don't think really with Grisman, but this was, Jerry's bluegrass band, I guess. Grisman was originally from New York or New Jersey, but he moved to San Francisco, and he knew Jerry before the Dead, right? Like, did they
Yeah,
know each other before
yeah,
that?
yeah. Jerry was down in Palo Alto,
Mm-hmm.
by Stanford University, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
whole scene. In fact, I'm reading this book. Let me just grab it. I just started this book. This book. This is a
Mm-hmm.
journal memoir, but it's really a journal Robert Hunter
Mm-hmm.
did, and these were sort of lost. Robert Hunter, the lyricist, to work with
Yeah,
Jerry,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's about that scene in Stanford University, and there was a really counterculture. Sorry to hijack
No,
it.
it's fine. It's
It's an
fine.
interesting story because when I was a kid, we lived for 5 years, 6 years down in Menlo Park, right near there. And as a young kid, like in early 60s, I'd go, my parents actually would drop me off at 8, 9 years old with my friends, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't drop my kid 8, 9 years old anywhere.
Yeah. Right.
But at Kepler's Books, which was kind of the equivalent near Stanford University of City Lights. It was a hipster store
Mm-hmm.
with the counterculture and the poets and the whole scene, and they would jam around there. And they talk about Jerry and meeting Phil Lesh and the jamming, the bluegrass sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure with David Grisman at the time too, who
Yeah.
played a
Yeah.
fabulous mandolin.
Right. But yeah, so there's this. Then there's I also have the Grisman Quintet,
Oh,
which
that's
was formed in San Francisco, and obviously Tony Rice was in this band. Daryl Angor,
violin.
yeah, and Daryl Anger and Todd Phillips is a
Got a
big
bit of a gypsy
bluegrass guy.
Django Reinhardt thing going too. Sometimes.
Yeah, so that was the thing about Grisman was there's bluegrass for sure, but his whole thing was like the fusion of jazz, right? And um that I mean that's the thing. I mean Tony, that's what Tony was all into very early too.
Tony Rice, right?
It wasn't really until he got out on his solo stuff that he started to get more traditional or start to look back towards the traditional. I mean, Tony was always like evolving the art form, don't get me wrong, but like it was the stuff that when he was playing with Grisman where he was really into jazz, like his playing was like all kinds of just jazz licks, you know. Yeah, there's a lot of swing kind of on this. A
Yeah,
great record. Written, get it pretty cheap too.
yeah. There's a kaleidoscope, I think it was on. Yeah.
Yep. This one you can't get cheap. And this is Garcia Grisman. This is now I bought this when it probably first came out, like or right around the time, or it was before MoFi really started blowing up in
I have
price.
that on CD because that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just incredible record. A lot of singing on this one. You know, the Grisman Quintet is all instrumental. Um, but this has more of kind of like a singer-songwriter vibe even to it, I think. But yeah, still very folk bluegrass. And then also this one, which came out last year, or was it this year? I can't remember. For
I haven't heard
RSD.
that one.
This is Garcia and Grisman, and it's So What? And it's Miles Davis's So What? So
Are they
there's still
covering the whole?
it's all Miles
That-
Davis.
wow.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know that record.
like Milestones is on here, Bags Groove. Well, there's a couple but I can't remember if that was on the original album or if they added it. There are two songs called Grateful Dog and Dog's Waltz, but I can't remember if that was on the original CD or not. I had this CD when I was in college, and so when I saw it coming out for RSD, I was like, I got to get that. But yeah, this is a really cool album. But yeah, that's all the Grisman I have. But
There's a
yeah.
big set coming out, I think, like right now of Grisman and Garcia, and I don't know if it's a double or a multi CDs box or something. I've been seeing it promoted. It could be really interesting. Another one you should seek out. This record store day, Black Friday, 2 weeks ago. The 1990 Dog album, David Grisman.
Yeah.
It's a double album on Record Store Day. It sounds amazing, and it's
Yeah.
got that very acoustic, jazzy flavor. Again, you can hark back, even though he's metal. You know, I'm a big fan of Django Reinhardt, so it's got that a
Yeah.
modern day vibe of that whole new grass thing.
Yeah.
I think that now I think you're leading me in. You're like the
Okay.
opening act for mine because I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to go to Deep Gap, North Carolina.
All right.
You know where that is? I keep asking you this.
Yeah. I mean, roughly. Yeah.
And to me, one of the greatest bluegrass or flat guitar picker is
Yep.
Doc Watson. I mean,
Yeah. I figured you would have to talk about Doc.
I have to. I
Yeah.
could not. I just
Yeah.
pulled one. I didn't pull multi records very much, but I have about 4 or 5 of his records, and I plus have a major CD set, box set stuff. Luckily I saw Doc and Merle Watson did a series of a week, I think, or maybe 5 nights at a club that's no longer in San Francisco called the Boarding House, and I went to 2 of those shows. And about 4 years ago, there was a CD box set on Bear, not Bear's Choice, but the label, the CD label. They put out some vinyl that the Acid guy, Owsley, the Owsley tape put out, and it's a wonderful set. So Doc and Merle, unfortunately, his son died like in a tractor accident. But he only died about, a dozen years ago or so. But one of the great flat picking bluegrass guitar players, blind, I don't know if at birth, but early on, and just an incredible artist, would sing and play. And, you know, I mean, he's a part of the whole. I think I probably got into him because of that great comp of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, you know, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? One of many Nashville and Southern artists. That to me was a groundbreaking collaboration instead of just calling them the fucking hippies, the long hair.
Oh yeah, no.
Like they did with the Birds at Sweetheart at, you know, the Ryman or at the Grand Ole Opry. I mean,
right.
They embraced each other, and just the talking in between the tracks on that album, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But on in here, you could totally see where on side 1, Sitting on Top of the World. Well, I learned that song because of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
Jerry Garcia, even with the psychedelic stuff, was doing rock and roll psych stuff of these traditional bluegrass songs. The Dead turned me on to Marty Robbins with El Paso and Big Iron. And so that's what's great about having these, you know, rock bands like the blues bands and the British blues bands that turned us on to that roots music here. But on Vanguard Records, I think this is the classic cover art for a Doc Watson record.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned him in the t-shirt that I'm wearing. I'm wearing a Dolly Parton t-shirt. The only time, so have you ever even heard of Merle Fest? Merle Fest? So it's like an annual huge bluegrass
Not Merle
festival.
Haggard. We're talking Merle Watson.
Merle Watson, named after Merle Watson.
Yeah.
And it's held up in the Yadkin Valley area. It's like Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And the only time I've ever been was the early, was it 2000, 2001, maybe somewhere around there. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was
Oh,
huge at the time. And Dan Tominski was performing on all the stages at Merle Fest that year, and everybody would joke and call him George Clooney and all that shit. But Dolly Parton was the headliner, and that was big. Like it was one of the first times they ever brought in like a mainstream, like kind of country artist to perform. I think because she was doing some bluegrass album at the time or something. So she performed the headlining set on the last day, and Doc would come on stage and play like with whoever was headlining. So that was the only time I got to see him. But at least I got to, got to see him. Legend. So yeah, pretty cool.
yeah.
You'll have to,
Is this your
that's your
last one, or do you
gateway.
have?
That's your reason to come here.
Okay.
You come here, we'll go to Merle Fest.
What is it, a spring show type thing?
Yeah, it's in the spring. We'll camp out in a tent beneath the
You know, I'm
stars,
not camping
Cassie.
out in no tent.
Well, yeah, come on, it'll be great.
Do they have glamping in North Carolina?
When I went, I slept in my car. It was hilarious.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
We won't go there. Do you have one more or two more?
I have one more.
Okay.
One
well,
more.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's your channel. You're gonna cheat. You always
I'm
cheat.
not cheating.
All right. So the last one I'm going to talk about, I have to go in the kind of indie rock realm. And I'm going to talk about the band Tune Yards. Now, you would love this band, Mazzy.
Tune Yards, Tune.
Yeah, yeah. Tune Yards.
I see it now. Okay.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of type where they try to
A little bit clearer here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Tune
can't use
Yards.
normal type. Okay. I've
So,
never heard of them in my entire life.
you would love them. I'm telling you, you would love them. So
What period
really,
is this? What
it's,
year?
huh?
What period, time period?
This was the second full length, and it came out in 2011. I think their first full length came out in 2009.
So just a few years before I moved from
Yeah.
Francisco. Huh.
So she's really they're from Oakland. The band kind of started in Oakland. She's originally from like Connecticut or something. But it's really the lead singer, principal songwriter is named Meryl Garbus. And she just a crazy voice. Absolutely. I mean, a set of lungs like you've never heard. It's fantastic. And her partner, Nate Brenner, they would eventually get married. But he was like her bandmate. And so they put out the first couple of records. It's really just the two of them. This one created a lot of buzz when it came out. And it was on a lot of like kind of hipster top 10 lists or whatever, and it's outstanding music. She writes and performs at this point primarily with ukulele, but then she loops it. So there's like a loop pedal involved, and then that brings in like he plays bass primarily, but then there's like electronic like drum patterns. There's all kinds of like polyrhythms. There's a lot of influence from African, like West African, like Afrobeat and high life music and dance hall reggae. Like it's got a very world influenced like sound to it. And it's just powerful music. Now, she kind of has the voice. You know how some people just can't get into Fiona Apple because of her vocals? Like I don't understand why they can't, but there are some people that just can't, right? It's just I don't know if it's the tone of her voice or whatever. She is just like at 11 almost the whole time,
Is she a belter or is she intimate?
She can get intimate. There's definitely some of that, but she gets at 11 for a lot.
That's like, I don't. Would you say Grace Slick used to do that? Used to do those belting out where she gets in these like Eastern Arabic tone, like almost like a Middle Eastern.
Yeah. So you know how when Grace gets to the end of White Rabbit and it's just at that, I mean,
Yeah,
just
that's yeah.
that's, I mean, half the album, she's at that level,
We had to
right?
mention Grace Slick in this video, so
Yeah. Um,
wow,
but then
never heard of them.
this is my favorite one by them. This came out in 2014. I'm actually going to talk about it in a video that I'm posting soon.
Are they still together?
Yes. Yeah. The album that they put out after this was a little too complex for me. It was interesting, but it lacked the hooks that these aren't the first two, but the second and third album, they have a lot of hooks, but it's really interesting music too. Like it's very in-depth kind of stuff. And but I think just because you are so into like those Analog Africa like releases and stuff, I think you would really like this band. She took some hits because she's white, and so she took some criticism for like, you know, cultural appropriation and stuff like that, but she owns it. She even kind of pokes at herself and lyrically on this album a little bit. I think the whole next album pretty much is all about that. And but there's a deep knowledge of that music, and like they have a real reverence for it. So you know, but yeah, it's you know, I don't know. I don't think enough people talk about them. I think they're
I've never heard of them in my
fantastic.
entire
I
life.
think you would really like them.
Okay.
But you ignore every record that I send you, so
Only the comedy records that dissing on San Francisco. Okay, I'm going to end up with one, but I'm going to let you choose because I have two more here. So I'm going to show you the two, and you tell me which one I should really, which band
okay.
or artist I should talk to. And they're
Okay.
both totally
Randy
other.
Travis.
Pardon me?
Randy Travis. Randy Travis. That's who I want you to do.
No,
Randy
no Randy
Travis.
Travis. There's obviously Nina Simone.
Yeah. Okay.
And one that, I mean, when you hear this next band, you think North Carolina, the Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Yeah. Do the Squirrel Nut Zippers. Do the Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Okay.
Now
well,
let me say this about
great...
Nina Simone. Let me say this about Nina Simone really quickly. She was very open about having no nostalgic love for North Carolina. Like she very much knew she needed to get away from the South, right? For obvious reasons.
Obvious reasons.
But like just no even reverence for it after. She came back here in Charlotte and performed at a jazz festival one year. And in the interview, she basically said, yeah, I don't have any connection to this area whatsoever. You know,
she would lecture her audience all the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love Nina Simone.
I do too.
Don't get me wrong.
I love her. And people who don't know much about her, watch the documentary. She was bipolar. We didn't even know at the time. You know, it's an amazing story, amazing artist, classically trained, jazz, piano, vocals. I mean, we're talking about her anyways.
Whatever. But but talk about Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know historically much to say about it, but in the 90s, one of there was two I don't want to say crazes because it didn't sweep the nations or anything, but the nation. But there were, you know, I was buying a lot of records. But remember, from 1990, end of 1990, that whole decade, my son was born the end of 1990, so I was a father. Well, I'm still a father, but for the 10 years that you know what it is like with young kids, you know, you basically have like you're a chain connected to your ankle and strapped to your house or where your kids are. And there was the swing craze and the kind of the retro 50s craze a little bit for a while. And then there was also a craze, again, if you bought CDs especially, there was this whole thing about lounge music, bachelor pad music, and Martin Denny's CD reissues and the Ultra Lounge CD reissues and Jackie Gleason and the schmaltzy stuff, you know, Orson Space, the organ playing, bongo, Enoch Light, bachelor pad, left to right stereo records. But they were a band out of North Carolina, and they were from, I don't know where they were from in North Carolina, but 1995 they put their first album out. I think it was this one. But I don't remember what order these are. To me, these are the kind of albums that I have no idea specifically what's on what. You put it on for a mood and a sound,
Yeah.
and they pretty much, as I recall, all sound the same. Now, someone who's really into them would say otherwise, but
Yeah.
for like a swing, retro, gypsy jazz, uh, kind of tea lounge band. And they've been on and off. I think they're together still. They play things. They, dress up in
Yeah.
the white ties. And I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, you could see them at a Sunday afternoon party or something, cocktail thing. And I just love this music. And this is the kind of stuff, especially when you have a young kid in your home and people are over and it's not anything that's going to be in anybody's face. It's nice background music too. But I don't have any vinyl. I don't think I need any vinyl of this, but I just, do they have a sense of humor? I don't even know, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but it's a little,
Their big hit was the song Hell. That was their big hit.
oh, it's on here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they
And
were popular for a while, at least, I don't know, the West Coast, and I'm sure where you are.
so it was like
I can see that. Oh, you had to show the Squirrel Nut
no, no,
Zipper.
no, no.
That doesn't
I
represent
like
North
the Squirrel Nut
Carolina.
Zippers. I like the Squirrel Nut Zippers. I never got as huge into them as some other people that I knew, but like they were definitely talked about like when I was in high school, before they even, because I don't even think it was, no, I think I was still in high school. But anyway, yeah, that swing period that you're talking about, that really happened in LA mostly. And then that movie Swingers, the John Favreau film with Vince Vaughn, Swingers, like highlighted some of those groups that in the 90s, like Big Bad Voodoo Daddy,
Yep.
and what was the other one? The Cherry Poppin' Daddies. I guess any band with daddies in the name or whatever. But then the Squirrel Nut Zippers were tapped, almost kind of like tapped for that, right? They were already doing it, and they were doing it on their own in North Carolina with no attention whatsoever. But then that swing thing got popular, and it's like, oh, who else sounds like that? Oh, the Squirrel Nut Zippers. So let's pull them in, give them a record deal, give them a single. But they were way different. Like their music is more indebted to just kind of old time music, right?
Right.
Like it's not about the kind of the clubs. It's Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and those bands were a little bit more indebted to Sinatra, like and Tony, but like the early Sinatra, right?
And the beginning of rock and roll a little bit too.
Yeah, and a little bit of that as well. Exactly.
Bill Haley, but not quite as
right. Squirrel Nut Zippers are way more indebted to like early jazz and kind of old time folk music and stuff. There's a little bit of that. The other thing that I think about with them is that an artist that I love to this day, one of my favorite artists, really, Andrew Bird, played with them too. So like he's on one of those albums, if not two of them, but like just as like a guest musician, right? He wasn't a member of the actual band, but violin player. He started his own group that was very similar to them called Andrew Bird's Bowl of Fire.
I mean, look at this. I mean,
yeah.
It looks like the label is North Carolina based, so it seems like from all the records we have here, they're the most North Carolinian in terms of
for sure. So like, yeah, they were a big deal, and they're from Chapel Hill. So the Triangle area in North Carolina, which spawned all these bands, Superchunk, Ben Folds 5. He was friends with those guys.
I thought of Ben Folds
Chapel
5.
Hill.
I thought of showcasing Ben Folds 5, but I only have the CD with them backing William Shatner. So I didn't, that was a little too much. And I almost thought about another record artist I don't have that I thought about is the DBs.
Yeah.
They're from North Carolina.
Well, so like the DBs, Homosapien and Stamey were definitely from North Carolina. Their first bands were all in North Carolina, but the DBs were actually formed in New York. So it's like
okay,
they teamed up, but Stamey had his own band. Homosapien had his own band. That were North Carolina. I mean, there's a bunch of them. You know, I was gonna do this whole long series of videos about North Carolina bands.
200 bands.
I've done 3 of them in like the 6 years I've been doing videos, but I meant to do a ton, right? And a lot of those bands I would have talked about, like, and I still might do it someday, you know, but like, you know, I did talk about, oh, I can't even remember. I'm not even going to go into that. I don't need to drag on, but yeah, it's something that I'm into, you know, something that I'm very much into is that kind of knowing about like the bands that are from here. And the North Carolina scene is I mean, it's a pretty, it produced a lot more than, and it is producing a lot more still.
Okay, let me ask you this.
A lot of people realize.
We're winding down. We're going to close out now, but before we leave, can you name one artist band that you think really epitomizes for you North Carolina now, or recently in the last?
Now? Like right now?
Just that if you were saying I had to show one band from my state, one artist.
Oh God, that's impossible.
Okay.
That's impossible. But I will just say that Superchunk really kind of was like in the 90s, in the late 80s, early 90s, kind of started this kind of underground swell, this music in North Carolina. Now there were precursors, there were bands before them, don't get me wrong. But like they really kind of emboldened that scene, and all these bands kind of followed after them, right? And any band that, no matter what they sound like, no matter what type of music they play, any band that's from North Carolina, currently resides in North Carolina or whatever, will tell you that Superchunk is kind of like the forefathers of, you know, of the indie rock alternative scene or whatever, like in North Carolina, right? And but there's so much more too, you know. I mean, there's just like the folk artists, the bluegrass artists, the Appalachian music scene. I mean, it's you know, North Carolina is a big, kind of a big state where you start in the mountains and you end up on the beach, you know. And like, so there's a lot between the west and eastern part of the state, you know. I mean, there's a lot of music here, for sure.
Well, thank you so much. This was fun. Did you have a good time?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure. We're going to close now. Don't hang up after we log out.
Okay.
Just say, and the last thing I want you to say is your Appalachian word of the day.
What? I don't have one. I don't know. What are you saying? You just want me to say something like yonder or something? Is that how you just like want me to say?
Well, you know that Instagrammer, she does her Appalachian word of the day.
Oh yes, I love her. She's from
it.
Kentucky. She's from Kentucky.
Well, but she's Appalachian word of the day is Uranus.
Oh, if you had
come around here today.
Nah, you should have told me and I would have preprepared one.
Of course
for
you
the
would.
video. You should have told me ahead of time.
Anyway, thanks for watching. There's a link below to John's digital gramophone station, and the best part of it is stay to the very end and listen to my recitation that he stole from me. Digital gramophone makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
As he loves you.